Imagine meeting someone and instantly knowing what they really think of you. I mean, no more guessing, no more trying to read between the lines, no secrets. A world where every single thought is just out there. It sounds fascinating, right? And maybe just a little bit terrifying.
All right, so let's really get into it. This is our big thought experiment for today. What would our world actually look like if humans, with no gadgets or tech, just developed the ability to read minds?
And right away, you can see how this whole thing just splits down the middle into two totally extreme possibilities. On one hand, you've got this utopian dream, perfect empathy, a world without lies, deep connections. But on the other hand, a complete dystopia, total surveillance, mental chaos, and the end of secrets as we know them. So which one is it?
So let's start with the good stuff, right? The dream. Why are we so drawn to this idea in the first place? Well, it seems to come from this really deep human desire for perfect, unfiltered understanding.
And I think this quote just nails it. We think we want to hear the words, right? The sentences in someone's head. But what this suggests is that we're actually craving something way deeper. We don't just want communication. We want communion, a real, true sharing of feeling that words can never quite capture. Okay, so that's the dream. But, and this is a big but, that dream crashes headfirst into a messy, chaotic reality. How our minds actually work.
You know, when we think of mind reading, we usually picture hearing someone's inner voice, like they're narrating their life. But is that really what a thought is? Is it just that voice, or is it a flash of a memory, a gut feeling, a sudden wave of anxiety? What are you actually listening to?
And check this out, because this is where it gets really wild. It turns out, for a huge chunk of us, we're talking 50 to 70%, we don't even think in words most of the time. We think in pictures, in feelings, in abstract concepts. So reading someone's mind would be less like listening to a podcast and a lot more like watching a surreal, jumpy, experimental film.
So yeah, you're not getting a clean little transcript of someone's thoughts. No way. You're getting the whole chaotic mess, bits of songs stuck in their head, random images, fleeting worries, and of course those bizarre, intrusive thoughts that we all have but would never ever say out loud. You'd be getting the raw, unfiltered feed of a human consciousness.
All right, so if that's what's going on inside our heads, what happens when you pour that raw, unfiltered stream directly into our closest relationships?
I mean, just think about your day-to-day life. So much of how we get along is built on tiny, polite little fictions. Oh, your new haircut looks great. No, it's no trouble at all. The moment that protective layer is gone, conversations become brutally, maybe even dangerously honest.
And you know, you see stories from people who feel like they have this kind of connection, and it's this total double-edged sword. People on Reddit talk about the incredible intimacy of knowing what your partner is about to say. But they also talk about the absolute agony of accidentally hearing your partner's lingering thoughts about an ex, something that gets confirmed years later. The connection can be amazing, but the lack of a filter can be just devastating.
Okay, let's pull the camera back. We've talked about personal relationships. What about society as a whole? What happens when everyone is an open book? How does that change everything from crime to justice to just being a person?
And boom, there's that split again. Utopia versus dystopia. On the one side, you have a world with almost no crime. How could you plan a crime if your intent is broadcast to everyone? Court trials would be a thing of the past. But the flip side is horrifying, a world of total surveillance. There's no innocent until proven guilty when your every fleeting, angry thought is now potential evidence against you.
And this quote, man, it just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? Our mind is the one place we can be truly, completely ourselves. We can try on ideas, we can be wrong, we can be vulnerable. For someone to just walk into that space, even if they mean well, it feels like a fundamental violation of who you are.
So, when we talk about all this, the term that really sums it up is informational privacy. And it's not about having things to hide. It's about control. It's the basic right to decide who gets access to your inner world, your thoughts, your feelings, your data.
And look, this isn't just some nice-to-have thing. It's absolutely crucial. Privacy is what gives you the room to figure out who you are, to form your own opinions without being judged. That's autonomy. And without that autonomy, how can you really be a part of a free, democratic society? You can't.
Which leads us to maybe the heaviest cost of all, the psychological price you'd pay for living with absolutely no mental walls, where your inner self is just constantly on display.
Just imagine for a second, if you knew every single weird, random, or bad thought you had, could be heard by everyone. What would happen? You'd start policing your own thoughts. You'd probably try to suppress any unconventional ideas, avoid creative risks, and just stick to safe, approved ways of thinking.
So, where does that leave us? We've looked at the dream of perfect connection, and we've stared into the nightmare of total exposure. It really feels like we're reaching a verdict in this little thought experiment of ours.
At the end of the day, it seems like what we would lose is just so much more valuable than what we'd gain. We'd lose the freedom to be messy, to be wrong, to try out a dumb idea in the privacy of our own heads. We'd lose the very things that lead to authenticity and creativity. That engine of personal growth would just grind to a halt.
So here's the final question to chew on. We often think of our inability to read minds as a limitation, a bug in our design. But what if it's not a bug at all? What if privacy, that quiet, sacred, messy space inside our own heads, is actually a feature? Maybe it's one of the greatest gifts we have.